The President, please be seated. The court is now in session. During today's sessions, we're going to hear testimonies of Mr. Nikan. Yesterday, the Chamber has already informed the parties to the proceeding that questions should now begin from counsels from Nuon Chea. Before we proceed to other counsels, judges of the bench may wish to put a few questions to the witness as well. Mr. Dujpari, could you report on the health status of Mr. Ingsari to the Chamber? Mr. Dujpari. Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors. Mr. Ingsari is present in the holding cell. Mr. Ingsari has waived his right to be present in the courtroom. His waiver has already been given to the greffier already. Thank you, Mr. President. The President, the Chamber has received Mr. Ingsari waiver, in which he has requested that he be excused from this courtroom and be permitted to observe the proceedings from his holding cell for the whole day due to his health reason. He cannot remain seated in the courtroom. The Chamber has noted this and that he is permitted to observe the proceedings from his holding cell through the video link. Mr. Ingsari can also assist his counsel, or rather provide Mr. Ingsari can be assisted from his holding cell through such audio video link. AV booth officials are now instructed to ensure that the AV audio-visual equipment are well connected to the holding cell so that Mr. Ingsari can observe the proceedings from there. We now proceed to the testimony session of the witness. But before we proceed, I would like to ask my fellow judges to see whether they would wish to put any questions to the witness. Judge Lavergne, you may now proceed.
Oui, Monsieur le Président.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Mr. President. Just before addressing a few supplementary questions to the witness, I wish to bring to the attention of all a few clarifications on documents that were brought forward by the prosecution during the cross-examination of the witness. Those documents are telegrams 306 and 307, which carry the numbers D52/12, as well as D52.13. These telegrams recount the visit of the Yugoslav delegation to Democratic Kampuchea. Those telegrams are signed by a certain Khan, and I believe that it would be very important for everyone to know that those indeed are copies of telegrams. And therefore, we have an acknowledgement of receipt of those documents, telegrams 306 and 307 were received respectively on the 12th and 15th of March 1978. More importantly, I would emphasize that those telegrams contain lists of the recipients of those said telegrams, and among those recipients, I would name Hum Nun, Bong Van, Brother Van, Bon Vong, that is Brother Vong, and it would appear that copies were also transmitted to the office and the archives. I believe that it was crucial for the public as well as for members of this courtroom to be apprised of that. Now, good morning, Mr. Witness. I do have a few brief questions to put to you. The first relates to the role of Mr. Kyo Sampon. During the course of your work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you were in contact with Mr. Kyo Sampon. Can you please tell us in what circumstances you were in contact with Mr. Kyo Sampon?
Response. Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors. I worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The structure of work at the ministry was already mentioned in my testimony previously. We had to obey people according to the hierarchical orders, and the person who was in charge of the ministry was Ta Ieng Sari. At that time, I had no contact with Mr. Kyo Sampon.
Mr. Nikan, you testified to this court that you were the director of protocol, that you were in charge of protocol, and part of your responsibilities was to welcome foreign dignitaries. And of the delegations who traveled here, did any of them meet with Mr. Kyo Sampon? And during those occasions, did you meet or come in contact with Mr. Kyo Sampon?
Response. The majority of the foreign visitors I received were of the lower level people, including the journalists. I received them occasionally. As far as I know, I had never met Kyo Sampon during such occasion.
Did you have the opportunity to run into Mr. Kyo Sampon in the hallways of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. No, I didn't.
Alors.
Very well, Mr. Witness. Could you please tell the court? Who was in charge of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs when Mr. Ieng Sari was absent? Who replaced Mr. Ieng Sari on those occasions?
Response. It was a long time ago. I don't remember everything. However, according to the hierarchy, how people worked, it was Hong who had to replace him when he was absent, and another person would be Mr. Chiem.
Quand vous dites
And when you refer to Hong, are you talking about So Hong alias Salot Ban?
Response. I remember the person as Hong or So Hong. I don't know whether he had another name as Mr. Salotban, because normally during that time people had some other names.
et saviez-vous si cette
And did you know or that individual was the brother of Pol Pot?
Response. At that time, people's biographies were not open or exposed to us to know whether he was somewhat related to Pol Pot.
bien
Very well. Let us return to an area that seems to be your domain of expertise, that of propaganda, since you have several years of experience in that field. Did you know anyone by the name of Yun Yat?
Response. I believe Yat must have been the wife of Mr. Son Sen.
de quoi s'occupait-elle?
And what was she in charge of during the time of democratic Kampuchea? Response. The regime of work at that time, as I already indicated to the chamber, the work of the upper echelon and of the lower echelon was not connected or was separate. So until today, I have no idea what she could have done.
Mais de qui
But who gave you instructions regarding propaganda, sir? From whom did you receive those orders? Response. I believe the structure at that time was a unique structure without proper vertical line. It was the chairperson or the head of the ministry or each respective department would be the ones who rendered the orders or instructions. So to put it simply, I received such orders from the chief of the department.
Bien, on va passer à une dernière.
Very well, that brings us to our last question. What did you know about the death of your brother, Son Sen and Yun Yat? What did you know at the time?
Response. I learned about this through other people. However, I do not know the cause of their death and who killed them. I'm not sure I understand or I know this. And to make sure we understand this, when the war was nearing the end, I was attached to the south location, and my brother's family was attached to the north wing. And they were at the higher level, and I did not know anything about their fate, and I heard from people that they all dead. We had not had any contacts with them before they died, and there was no proper channel or communication to me, and I just heard from others that they died.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, I have no further questions to ask this witness. Thank you.
The President. Next, we would like to hand over to counsels for Nuon Chea to put questions to the witness if they would wish to do so. You may now proceed. Counsel Son Arun. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. And good morning, Mr. Nikon. I am Son Arun, representing Nuon Chea. First of all, I would like to put a few questions to you. Yesterday and before yesterday, you testified before the chamber when questions put by the prosecutors and the counsels for the civil party. You indicated that you joined the revolution for sure in 1970. Is that correct? Response. My engagement in the revolution was happening in 1970. Counsel, thank you. Before 1970, in your testimonies, you said you had worked, but not in your capacity as a member of the party. You only worked in the propaganda section, proselytize information in the underground. And as a teacher, did you know that foreigners already came to settle down in Cambodia? Or did you know that these foreigners came to cause problem, including causing the insecurity in the country in the 1960s? I believe that as a teacher you were educated enough to understand this situation. Have you ever heard anything like this? The President, witness, could you hold on? The prosecutor, you may now proceed.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors, ladies and gentlemen. We've just heard a very long question about the presence of foreigners. That is rather convoluted. I believe that the question should be reformulated, simplified, so that we can all understand exactly what Council is trying to ask. Thank you very much.
Counsel Sonarun, I would like to respond to the prosecutor. Whether my question is long or short, it depends on the witness who may be able to respond to my question or not. The President, the objection by the prosecution is not sustained. The Chamber wishes to hear the response of the witness to the question put to him by counsel for Mr. Nguyen Chia. Witness is now instructed to respond. Response. I think I may wish to respond to the question. I don't know whether the statement will answer to the question or not. When I worked as a school teacher, and I was engaged in the propaganda, but I had no knowledge of any foreigners coming to settle in Cambodia as yet. Question. In 1970, you genuinely joined the revolution. And you said yesterday that you joined the revolution through the appeal by the Front for people to go to the Maki. I would like you to explain to the court what is your understanding of the Maki forest. Response. The explanation of the Maki forest may not be properly done by me because I don't remember the details of this, but I can briefly say that the purpose is to make people unite together to fight the American imperialists along with the Lonol's people, those people who staged the coup d'etat to topple down King Norodom Sihanouk. So this is what we understood from this. Question. You said the Front appealed for to people to go to the Maki, Who is actually the front, as you referred to? Was it an organization or who, for sure? Response. The front was the one who gave the instruction, and it was the head of state. And so far as I remember, the person who was in charge of the front was individual Som Dach Au, or the king. Question. So the front appealed and asked people to go to the Maki forest to fight the American imperialists. From 1970 through 1975, you had worked fully in the front. This front was created by whom? By the CPK or by Som Dach Au? Response. I don't think I understand this, because it was part of the upper echelon task. Question. From 1970 through 1975, the same period indeed, you had joined as a full member in the resistance movement. At that time, did you believe that all the people who were in the resistance were the supporters of King Norodom Sihanouk, or did they belong to other groups? Response. I don't think I understand the details of this. However, I noted that in the front, I saw people from all walks of life, from every movement, to come and join in this movement. I cannot say exactly which groups they belong, because as a lower level cadre, I do not think I understand this in details. Question. In document D69/16 on G3, the question about when Tasi was arrested, can you please clarify the response to this question? Response. I would like to make it clear that I still maintain my statement I gave to the co-investigating judges. I stand by that position, that I left and I heard the information concerning the arrest, but I don't remember the exact date of the arrest. Question. In the same document, you said And you responded indeed on the second line. You said that about 3 months when you had left the West Zone for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, several problems happened concerning the arrest of people at the West Zone. But you said you didn't know this. And you also indicated that at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a lot of problems happened concerning the arrest of people in the West. But you did not know that. We just want to know what you mean by you didn't know it. Response. When I said after I had left, there was information that people had been arrested in the West Zone. I learned from the outside source. However, I did not know where these people arrested could have been sent to. And so far as I remember, I never mentioned any arrests made at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Because when I came, I did not know those people, and I did not even know whether people could have been arrested or not. I was at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I was tasked immediately with some protocol work. I was assigned to clean the houses and to arrange for receiving visitors.
My next question is, you told the co-investigating judges that you came to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. How did you learn about the arrests in the West Zone? How did you know that? Response. I learned about that through the grapevine. Thank you. In the same document 369/16, question number 9. According to the revolutionary flag, number 8, August 1977, did you know about that revolutionary flag? Did you see that revolutionary flag? Response. I have already answered to that question, but I can answer it again, and I don't know if I respond correctly to the question. First, I did not see the revolutionary flag, and even the substance that was used in the training session was an excerpt from the revolutionary flag itself. And revolutionary flag is an internal document. So that's all I would like to answer to that question. Mr. Sunarun, my question is whether or not you had seen the revolutionary flag, or had you read the revolutionary flag, or you merely saw the excerpt from the revolutionary flag. Response. Back then, the revolutionary flag document was not widely disseminated, so I did not see. What I only got was the excerpt from this magazine. Akun. Thank you, Mr. Sonoran. Can you recall some of the substance of the excerpt from that magazine? Can you tell the court about some of its substance? Response. The fundamental substance of this document was that we had to be constantly on the offensive in order to be self-reliant. This is the fundamental essence of this magazine, and it was for our execution as well. The second substance was that beside the constant offense on producing rice, we have to address the livelihood issue of the people at the base level. This is the second essence of the portion introduced to us. And other secondary substance includes promotion of health care for the people and enhance solidarity and unity between the new people and the old ones. This is what I can recall from the substance of the excerpts from that magazine. Thank you for your detailed response to the question. Question. According to your statement with the Office of Co-Prosecutor on the 28th of May 2012, that your report to the zone had to be submitted through the sector. And if there is any letter from the down from the zone, it must go through the sector as well. Is this a working procedure? Response. The working procedure and communication line is as what you have just described. We have to communicate through hierarchical structure, whether it be from bottom up or from the upper authority down to the lower level. Question. That was the administrative and working procedure of your organization. Do you know that this was a uniform working procedure, or it was unique to each organization or unit? Response. The working procedure, which I knew, was that it was uniform across the organization.
សូមអរគុណ
Thank you. Question. Following your participation in the front, and you were in charge of propaganda up until 1975, during that period, did you see any foreign forces, particularly the Vietnamese forces, or commonly known as Viet Cong, who came to assist the Luan Nol soldiers and his American ally? Response. I was a propagandist, and I was operating within my own framework. So I did not see anything, for example, the Vietnamese group or Viet Cong or so. I did not see any of them. Thank you. How about when Phnom Penh was liberated in 1975? Did you notice any Vietnamese troops working with the front forces? Respond. Can you please clarify your question? Question. From 1975 onward, namely after Phnom Penh was liberated on the 17th of April 1975, at that time the Communist Party of Cambodia seized Phnom Penh, and you were in Phnom Penh. You were stationed somewhere in Adong, and when Phnom Penh was conquered, then you came in to the city. When you arrived in the city, did you see any foreign forces? Did you notice that there were foreign forces, particularly Vietnamese forces, fighting alongside with the front forces, or it was the pure front forces? Response. I was with the forces, and I got into the city with them. And when on my arrival, I did not see any foreign forces. I only saw the United Front Forces. Question. When the forces belong to the West Zone conquered Phnom Penh, you were with the forces who were at the rear. You were not at the front, if my understanding is correct. And you were targeting to conquer the city. But my question is whether or not you heard that any other foreign forces were assisting the forces of the Democratic Cambodia. Response. I only knew one front. And according to my personal understanding of the situation at that time, I didn't think that there was any other foreign forces, but it was only one United Front forces who were fighting their way to conquer the city. Thank you. So I would like to move on to the next topic. When you became a member, a full member of the revolution, you worked with dedication with the front, and you held a moderate position throughout the period from 1975. Some toលោកប្រធានអាចសូមអ្នកបកប្រែសូមសួរឲ្យលោកមេធាវីសួរសំណួរឡើងវិញ
យើងខាងក្រោម
សូមខ្ញុំក៏មកតន់ឆ្លើយសូមលោកមេធាវី
The President, the witness, please hold on. The counsel, you may repeat your question because there was loss in translation. Question. You became a full member of the revolution since 1970 up until 1975. And then you held a number, some positions until 1979 when the Vietnamese troops conquered Phnom Penh. You undertook some responsibility, and those responsibilities were somewhat important, and that would allow you to know other leaders as well. Did you know Mr. Nguyen Chia? Response. Nguyen Chia was among the senior leaders of the regime, and I was a lower level cadre, and of course I knew him. Question. Were you close to him, or you merely knew that Nguyen Chia was someone who was high up in the hierarchy? Nguyen Chia, when you knew him back then, what was his position in the party and in the regime? Response. Can you please repeat your question because I do not quite get your point. My apology, Mr. President. I would like to now repeat my question. Since you became a full member of the front from 1970 up until 1975, and then you continue until 1979, and after until the Vietnamese troop conquered Phnom Penh, you held a moderately important position. Did you know Mr. Nguyen Chia clearly? The President, this question is repetitious. This question has already been answered. You should repeat your last question. The question that the witness is asking for repetition was your last question, not the question being asked. Mr. Sonarun, thank you, Mr. President. You said that you knew Nguyen Chia in his capacity as the person in the upper authority, but did you know his position exactly in the Communist Party of Cambodia? Response. My answer is the same. I did not know the organizational structure at the upper level. Mr. Sun Aron, as far as I know, Mr. Nguyen Chia was the president of the People's Assembly in charge of education and propaganda. Because his area of responsibility was propaganda and education, so he would be in the same areas of responsibility like yours. So when Mr. Nguyen Chia went down to the base or to the zone in order to conduct propaganda, did you ever join in his propaganda at those zones? I will respond to the question based on my recollection. First, on the hierarchical structure. On the paper, that was the structure, but on the operational level, that was not practiced. Because I try to answer based on my understanding. The situation at that time was the situation at that time was a bit chaotic because one war ended and another one erupted. So the line of communication does not based on any precise structure. Secondly, my response to the question will be repeating to what I responded over the last few days. I only attended in the training or propaganda programs when they were conducted in an open way. And of course, people at the upper authority rarely went down to the base. Thank you. You testified that you had attended open meetings. And once in a while, you saw Nuon Chie. Even if you were not close to him personally, what was your impression of him? Was he someone of a good model for the citizen, or he was someone who was a crook, or someone who was cruel, someone who was very harsh? And or he was someone of a quality of a good leader?
Some
Response. I will respond to this question based on my understanding. First, my impression of him was that he was like an ordinary citizen. Secondly, as for his precise role and responsibility, it was up to the upper level to arrange, so I could not comment on it. Thank you. Question. From 1975 onwards, when you were transferred from one place to another, was the transfer order made in a written form, or it was an oral order that you be transferred from one place to another? My question was basically on the administrative procedures. Can you please elaborate on that?
Response. The leadership regime at that time was that the lower levels had to obey orders from the upper levels. So I was asked to assist people at the ministry, and the justification for this transfer was always the same. I was told that I could read and write, and that I would be of assistance in that location, in that ministry, and I should not go to the base. Question. I have a follow-up question to this. Within the CPK structure, according to your knowledge and based on what you implemented. Now, for example, if you were a head of a department or a minister, were there any subordinates or deputies who would be in place to assist the persons, the heads who would be absent. You understand my question? Response: I'm afraid I don't understand your question. Please repeat. Question: for example, in a capacity as a head of or a leader, the secretary of the zone or the minister, after them, who were they? Were there any deputies to replace the chiefs when they were absent? Or were there only the heads, no other deputy heads? Response: in general, it was the norm that when a person was transferred, for example, in my case, I was transferred to the section where I would receive guests and accompany visitors. About 3 young people were assigned to assist me with my work. But at that time, I had no deputy who would be in place to help me. Question: Mr. Son Sen was your brother. When he went to the east, when there was fighting in the east, on the 15th of August 1977, did you know anything whether someone would be asked to replace Son Sen at the ministry when Son Sen was sent to the east? Response: as already indicated time and again, the work of my brother was separate from mine. We held different roles and we had different responsibilities. So your question whether I had any knowledge of the structure in which my brother worked, my response is very simple: no, I don't. Question: when or during the course of your propaganda work, you had been working in this section for quite some time. My question is, before you were engaged in the propaganda section, had you ever been trained in propaganda before? Response. If my memory serves me well, during that circumstance, there had not been any proper political training sessions on that. I had to take over these tasks and learned from the lessons passed down from the other. For example, in the propaganda, what words and expressions or text would be included, and we just had to follow what people normally did, and we just learned on the job. Question. Could you respond in a few words? What kind of education what kind of education was that in your course of propaganda sessions? Response. The education and the contents of the education back then was or depends on the time or the surrounding areas, the environment. For example, if we went to the base, the content of the education would be about the production, about the offensive farm production, about self-reliant and independence. And also, we had to include in these education sessions issues concerning health, solidarity, etc. We had to ensure that the solidarity notion was included in the education of propaganda. And for example, when it comes to boiling water, what should we do? What kind of firewood could we bring to boil this water? And if we needed people for the front, the battlefields, then we needed to include the content in which people would be convinced to come forward to assist the groups in the transportation section and to supply foods and other stuff to the people in the front battlefield. And these are part of the content of the education and propaganda sessions. Thank you, says counsel. I am now referring to a document D91/22 ERN number 0204-4134. With Mr. President Liu, may this document be put up on the screen? The President, could you tell the court the title of this document? Council. The title of the document is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs alias B1. The President, you may proceed. Court officer is now instructed to take the document from Council and have it presented to the witness for examination, and that the document should now be put up on the screen for the court.
នៅក្នុងឯកសាររចនាសម្ព័ន្ធនេះលោកមានដែលបានឃើញទេ
Question: Have you ever seen this document, in particular the structure, the organizational structure? You may note your name on the top row under Ieng Sari in box number 4 underneath Ieng Sari's name. Then you will see Nikon, your name. Response: I think I now see this document and my name. Question: Have you ever seen this structure of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Now I would like to refer mainly to the box in which your name exists. There's another person named T. Srun, alias Mut, and then your name, Nikon, Protocol Department. Can you read these writings? Although I cannot see it clearly, do you think you can read it clearly? And I think the names appear to have different kind of vowels and consonants. Do you recognize such writings? Is this the original, genuine document from the outset? Response: I think this table, in my plain language, was only introduced to me during the investigation phase. I was presented the document by the co-investigating judges. And secondly, the name T. Srun or other people here, I don't think I know this person. And thirdly, the names during the war or after the war or between 1975 and 1979, I would use my name as Kon. I never used my surname because people would like to have their very short name to be easily called and addressed. That's all I can tell you. And in conclusion, I may say that I only came to know this document when it was presented to me by the co-investigating judges. Question: You said the document was known to you only when you were presented the document before the co-investigating judges. But today, I would like to put to you whether you recognize and acknowledge such structure. Response. I wish to reiterate that with regard to this structure, I time and again indicate that I was transferred to the protocol section, and it is true. However, I was the implementer. I was not officially pronounced the director of the protocol section, and I had to implement carry out my tasks for a very short period of time. And secondly, at that time, I have no idea what kind of arrangement could have been made, whether any other person would be assigned to any particular position or department, because there was no proper or official appointment had ever been made. Question. So when you worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the protocol office, you never seen this structure. Is it fair to say so? And at the time when you were presented the document, it was your first time to see it. That's why I ask you this question again. Do you recognize or acknowledge such table or structure? The President interrupts. The question is repetitive, and witness is instructed not to respond. Counsel is advised to proceed to another question. Counsel. The next question is, please look at the writings in that structure. Look at the vowels. Look at the consonants and signs. For example, the moon-like signs. According to your knowledge and understanding, I believe that during your time, English was not the popular language used. Do you think that this table could have been produced by a Cambodian? Response. I think my understanding is not up to the level to explain this, because I have just seen the table and I don't know much about it. Counsel. Thank you. I have another question, and I believe it is my final question. Document D366/7.1.214. This document has already been referred to by the prosecutors when they put questions to you. However, I would wish to put a few more questions on the same document. This document is about the request by the journalists. My question is, were all the requests made by the journalists the same as you indicated in your report to the upper echelon, and whether such requests were entertained by the upper echelon as you indicated the requests that made by the journalists, the street journalists? Response. I already said it once. It was a long time ago. The content of the report, although my name appears on that piece of paper, I do not think I remember them all. But I can say that according to my memory, the requests were not entertained. Question. What about the request made by Mrs. Becker? The request to meet with Brother First Minister. Was such a request entertained? And did she meet with the minister? Response. I don't remember this. Council, I have no further questions, Mr. President. Thank you very much, Your Honours. And my colleague would like to proceed from me. The President Council, you may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, I'm the international lawyer, or one of the international lawyers for Mr. Nguyen Chia. And I had some questions. I have 3 or 4 topics I would like to cover. I do think that I can cover the first, maybe even the first 2 before the interval. Mr. Witness, first of all, I would like to ask some questions about the oath you gave before coming to court. Do I remember correctly that you told this court at the very beginning of your testimony that you were sworn in, that you gave an oath before coming to court? Is that correct?
The President. Witness is instructed not to respond to the question because the Chamber has already apprised the parties of this at the outset of the commencement of this hearing concerning this.
Where did you give your oath, Mr. Witness?
The President's witness is instructed not to respond to this question. Counsel is now instructed to look at the transcript. He may find the information he needs. Normally, witness is supposed to take an oath before the iron jenny which is erected to the east of this court.
I understand, Mr. President, that that is the normal procedure. I just want to be sure that the normal procedure was followed with this particular witness.
The President, you may proceed with other questions that are not relevant to the one that already put previously.
I have some more questions about the oath. I'll continue with those. Mr. Witness, I assume you gave your oath outside before the Lord of the Iron Staff. Normally an oath is given in court.
The President, the Chamber has already ruled that you are not allowed to put any further questions concerning the oath. The oath procedures have already been made in public, and if you have any problem or you challenge such a procedure, you may make your application in your final statement after the substantive hearing.
Mr. President, I was not intending to challenge the procedure. I want to establish what the procedure is. I want to ask this particular witness whether the procedure was followed. And I would like to emphasize that normally an oath is given. A witness is sworn in court in the presence of the parties, but nobody is present, or nobody was present.
The President, this is not the entire procedures to be applied here in the court as you understood. If persons who have to take an oath and they are the followers of other religions, then they would be allowed to take an oath differently. However, if they are Buddhists, then they are supposed to take an oath according to the text of the oath as encrypted or as prescribed in the criminal code of procedure. This witness has already taken an oath according to the law of Cambodia and in his capacity as a Buddhist, except a witness who is a Christian or another religion follower, then he or she would take an oath differently.
Thank you, Mr. President. I understand. There are various religions in Cambodia. I'll be more specific then. According to the document which was put on the file, you were sworn in and you said, I presume, the following, and I quote, "If I answer falsely on any issue, may all the guardian angels, forest guardians, and powerful sacred spirits destroy me. May my material possessions be destroyed, and may I die a miserable and violent death." Do you remember saying those words when you were sworn in?
The President, the witness is now instructed not to answer to this question. So long as the question is connected to the sworn in of the witness is instructed not to answer.
Mr. President, I seriously don't understand why I'm not allowed to ask those questions. They appear to be relevant, and I would like to know whether this particular witness gave the oath and whether he pronounced those words. And most of all, I want to know whether this particular witness believes what he told the Lord of the Iron Staff. I want to know whether this particular witness considers himself to be under oath or under threat of a miserable and violent death if he falsely testifies. I think that's a relevant question.
Mr.
The President, do you think you have any other substantial questions to be put to the witness? If not, the Chamber would proceed to other counsels.
I take that is a no to my request whether I'm allowed to ask this question. Mr. Witness, do you think that the Lord of the Iron Staff is a simple... let me rephrase that. The President of this court informed...
You are not allowed to put additional question concerning the swearing of this witness. This is the ruling of the chamber. And please move on. If you do not have any other substantive question, then we will proceed to another counsel.
I certainly have other substantive questions. I just wanted to know whether this witness shares your opinion, Mr. President, that the Lord of the Iron Staff is mere superstition. I think it is better for all of us if we break up now. And I will continue with another topic after the interval.
The President, you may continue. The decision to adjourn the proceeding or not is up to the chamber. The parties may simply continue, and we will tell whether the court is adjourned. We have so far reminded parties time and again that the chamber has the sole discretion to decide whether or not to adjourn the proceeding at any stage of the time. And this is done in light of the fact that we want this proceeding to be efficient and expeditious.
Your Honour, my client, I can assure you, shares that wish. I'll go to the next topic. Mr. Witness, could you just explain very briefly why you think you were transferred from Sector 32 to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
The President, the witness, please hold on. The international co-prosecutor, you may proceed.
Merci, Mr. Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't really want to intervene here, but the question was put yesterday and again today. Manifestly, sir, it's repetitive.
The President. Thank you. The objection by the prosecution is sustained. The witness need not answer that question.
I would have liked to reply before you took a decision, but as a general remark, I would like to emphasize that it's part of a normal cross-examination technique to ask repetitive questions. I can assure you that it happens regularly that people give different answers to the same question. Repetitive questions should be allowed, I would like to emphasize, especially when the answer has not been clear. But I will continue. Mr. Witness, did you have...
The President, please move on. The President, Counsel, please move on because we have already ruled upon that issue.
Yes, as I noted, you ruled before asking me whether I wanted to reply. Mr. Witness, did you have any women trouble in Sector 32?
Response. I am an individual who was in charge of the task designated to me. So at that time, whatever designation I was given, I was happy to handle the job. And given that circumstance at the time, I did not see that it was too difficult to do the job.
Mr. Witness, were you not transferred to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to B1, because you had problems with women, morality issues in Sector 32? Wasn't that the real reason you were transferred to B1?
The President. Witness is advised not to respond to this question because it is irrelevant. It was not mentioned in any paragraph indicated in the closing order.
I would submit, Mr. President, that this question is relevant. Whether it was mentioned anywhere or not is irrelevant. We have information that morality issues, women trouble, were the real reason for the transfer of the witness to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It has been suggested yesterday by the prosecutor that impending purges
we have already ruled upon that matter, and you are advised not to continue with that subject matter. And if you do not have any further questions, then we would give the floor to other parties.
Mr. President, I still have the floor, and I'm not intending to cede it, and I do have other topics I want to discuss with a particular witness. As I was trying to explain, this question is important, and the answer could be important, because yesterday it was suggested that impending purges were the reason for the transfer of this client, of this witness, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
The President, the time is now appropriate for the morning adjournment. And the Chamber wishes to remind the parties that parties should make use of good court time, and parties are not allowed to make arbitrary comments on any matters that may not conducive to the proceedings, and it may be a waste of the court time. So we will adjourn for 20 minutes, and court officer is instructed to arrange the place for the witness and his duty counsel. The court is now adjourned.